I had survived 2 deployments, 14-hour shifts in desert heat, and years of silence so my family could sleep safely. But nothing, not a single thing I faced overseas, prepared me for those words from my own father. "Don't come home this year." 7 words. And just like that, I understood what I had actually been fighting for. My name is Raina Calloway. I'm 36 years old. And before I tell you what happened that December, I need you to understand something about the kind of person I was before I became the kind of person who knew how to walk away. I joined the Army at 19. Not because I had no other options. I had a partial scholarship, a decent GPA, and a guidance counselor who believed in me. I joined because I genuinely believed in something bigger than myself. I believed in service. I believed in sacrifice. And somewhere deep in the part of me that never quite outgrew childhood, I believed that if I gave enough, proved enough, endured enough, my family would finally see me the way I needed them to. I was the dependable one, always had been. Growing up in Columbus, Ohio, in a house where money was tight and tension was tighter, I was the kid who didn't complain. I did my homework without being asked. I got jobs at 16. I sent money home when I could. My younger sister, Tara, was different. Tara cried beautifully. Tara had a way of making a room fold around her like a warm blanket. My parents, my dad especially, had a word for it. They called it sensitivity. I called it strategy, even if I never said so out loud. I missed my mother's surgery because I was on a second deployment and couldn't get emergency leave approved in time. I missed Tara's college graduation, 2 Thanksgivings, 3 Christmases, and a funeral for my grandmother who smelled like lavender and called me her warrior girl. I missed them all. I carried every missed moment like a stone in my chest, and I told myself it was worth it. That when I finally came home, it would mean something. I wasn't rich. I wasn't glamorous. I came back with a duffel bag, a bad knee, and a savings account I had been building quietly for years, money I planned to use to restart my life close to home. But I had something they never expected. I had documentation, every wire transfer, every promise, every receipt. I had learned in the military that paperwork is protection. I just never thought I would need to protect myself from my own father. I want to stop right here for a second, because if you've stayed with me this far, I think I know something about you. You've been the dependable one too, haven't you? The one who showed up, who sacrificed, who swallowed the hurt and kept moving because falling apart wasn't an option. You gave and told yourself the people who mattered would notice eventually. And maybe they did notice. They just decided it didn't change anything. I see you, I really do. Because this story isn't just mine. It belongs to every person who ever put family first and watched family put them last. It belongs to every son or daughter who stayed strong while being slowly, quietly pushed to the edges of the picture. The ones who get asked for help in the hard moments and get forgotten in the celebrations. If you've ever felt replaced, not dramatically, not with a fight, but just slowly, like you faded out of a photograph no one bothered to reprint, then you already understand exactly how I felt standing in my apartment that night with my phone in my hand and my father's voice still in my ear. Can I ask you something honestly? Would you still go home? If the person who was supposed to protect you told you not to come back, would you fight for the door, or would you finally let yourself be done? I thought about that question for a long time, and then I booked my flight anyway, not because I needed their approval, not because I was desperate, but because I had unfinished business and I had earned the right to finish it on my own terms. If that resonates with you, I want you to subscribe right now. Not for me, for the version of you that is tired of shrinking. This channel is a space for real stories, real consequences, and real people who decided enough was enough. Click subscribe, click hype, if you've ever been underestimated by the people who should have been your biggest supporters, and let's get into what actually happened that December. Because things were about to become very clear, and very expensive for the people who thought I'd stay quiet. The message came on a Tuesday night. I remember because I had just finished a workout, and my phone was sitting face up on the kitchen counter when my dad's name appeared. I answered immediately. That was the old Raina, still eager, still hopping. "Hey, Dad." Raina, his voice was flat, not tired flat, deliberate flat, the way someone sounds when they've rehearsed what they're about to say. "Listen, don't come home this year for Christmas." I actually laughed, a short, confused sound. What? Dad, I already bought the ticket. We already told the family you chose not to come, that you've changed, that you're focused on your own life now. The laughter stopped. You told them what? It's just easier this way. Easier for who? He didn't answer that. He said, your sister needs this Christmas. She's going through a lot with the wedding planning and everything, and it's better if we keep things calm. I stood in my kitchen with the overhead light buzzing slightly. I still needed to change that bulb, and I felt something slide out of place inside me. Not break. Slide. Like a piece of furniture shifted 2 inches to the left. Wrong, but too quiet to cause a scene. Dad, I've been gone for 3 years. I know that. I missed Mom's surgery. I missed everything. Raina, his voice had that edge now. The edge I remembered from childhood, the one that meant the conversation was over whether I agreed or not. It's just one Christmas. Don't make this into something it isn't. He hung up. I stood there for a long moment. Then I opened my phone and looked at my ticket confirmation. December 22nd, non-stop to Columbus. I had been looking at that confirmation email for weeks. I started making calls the next morning. My Aunt Rita picked up on the second ring, and before I could say anything warm, she said, "Oh, Raina, I heard you decided not to come home this year. That must be so hard for your parents after everything." Her voice had that particular quality, sympathy on the surface, something satisfied just underneath. She had never liked me much. I thanked her and hung up. My cousin Derek was worse. He texted me 2 hours later. "Kinda messed up that you keep avoiding family stuff. Tara's been holding everything together, just saying." I stared at that text. Tara had been holding everything together. Tara, who had never held a job for longer than 8 months. Tara, who had borrowed money from me twice in the last 4 years and paid back none of it. Tara, who had called me exactly 3 times during my entire last deployment and spent 2 of those calls talking about a guy she was dating. I called my mother. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. The 3rd time she picked up and immediately said she was in the middle of something and could she call me back. She did not call back. That night I went online. It took me about 4 minutes to find what I was looking for. My family had a group photo album on a shared app, one of those things my mother had set up years ago so we could all stay connected. I scrolled back through the last year and a half of photos. Holiday dinners, a summer barbecue, Tara's engagement party, which I had known about but had not been invited to because, as my dad put it at the time, it was just a small thing. In every single photo, there was my mother, my father, Tara, and Tara's fiancé, Derek. Not my cousin, a different Derek, I know, confusing, and various aunts and uncles. The family assembled and smiling. I scrolled through 43 photos. I was not in a single one, not because I had been absent. Some of these were taken during a period when I was stateside, when I had been within driving distance. I had simply not been invited. I had been quietly removed from the story. I called Tara that evening. She answered on the first ring, which surprised me. Then her voice came through, light and unbothered, and I realized she had been expecting a different reaction from me entirely. She expected me to be hurt, small, asking for reassurance. "Hey you," she said. "Tara, what is going on?" A pause, then, "What do you mean?" "Dad told me not to come home. Mom won't return my calls. I'm seeing photos from the last year that I wasn't included in. What is happening with this family?" Her tone shifted by about 3 degrees, still casual, but sharper underneath. "Raina, I don't know what you want me to say. You were never really here anyway. We couldn't keep putting our lives on hold for when you decided to show up." "I was deployed, Tara." "I know, and we're proud of you, but we have a life here. We have things happening. I'm getting married, there's so much going on, and it's just really stressful when you make everything about you." I want you to hear that sentence again. She told me I was making everything about me. I, who had not attended a single family event in 3 years. I, who had sent money home on 4 separate occasions. I, who had been quietly removed from 43 family photographs. I was the one making everything about me. I didn't yell. I had learned over many years and in far more high-pressure situations than a phone call with my sister how to stay very still when something enormous was happening. I said, "Okay, Tara," and I ended the call. I sat in the quiet of my apartment, and I let myself feel it fully for exactly 10 minutes. The betrayal, the erasure, the particular loneliness of realizing that the family you thought was waiting for you had simply decided to build their world without you in it. 10 minutes, and then I was done feeling it, because now I had something more important to do. I needed to check the numbers. I had been sending money home for years. Not massive amounts, I was a soldier, not an executive, but consistent amounts, carefully tracked, sent through official transfers with records attached. There was also the matter of a joint savings agreement my father and I had made 6 years ago, before my first deployment. We had both put money into a shared account, his idea, his framing, as a way to save for a piece of property he said we would eventually share. He had presented it as an investment in our future together. I had contributed over the course of several years. I had the receipts. I had not looked at that account in almost 2 years because I had trusted him. I looked now. The account had been nearly emptied. Withdrawals over the last 18 months, steady and deliberate, leaving almost nothing. The timing aligned, when I went back and checked, with the period during which Tara's engagement had been announced and wedding planning had begun. I sat with that information for a very long time. The numbers on the screen were not a surprise, not exactly. Something in the back of my mind had always whispered that my father's love had a transactional quality to it, that his warmth ran hotter when I was useful. But to see it confirmed, in cold figures and clean timestamps, was a different kind of thing entirely. It was the difference between suspecting a wound and seeing the scar. What they didn't know was that I had kept everything. Every document, every transfer record, every email confirmation. I had a folder on my laptop, organized and dated, that went back 6 years. I had not kept it out of suspicion, not at first. I had kept it out of habit. The military teaches you that documentation is your first and last defense, that the record of what happened is the only version that survives an argument. I had internalized that lesson so thoroughly that I had applied it to my own family without even fully realizing it. Now I was grateful for every single saved file. I also had something else. Before my first deployment, my father and I had gone together to a family lawyer named Gerald Pratt, a quiet, meticulous man who had handled my grandfather's estate years before and who my father trusted. Gerald had drafted the terms of our joint savings agreement on paper, signed and witnessed. It was not an informal arrangement. It was a documented promise, and somewhere in Gerald Pratt's filing system, that document still existed. I was not going to come home defeated. I was not going to show up asking for apologies or begging to be let back in. I had spent enough of my life asking to be let in. I was going to come home with everything I needed to make the truth undeniable, and I was going to let them be exactly as surprised as they deserved to be. My emotional temperature had changed completely. The hurt was still there. I want to be honest about that. It doesn't disappear just because you have a plan, but it had moved to the background. What was in the foreground now was something much quieter and much more focused. I knew what I had. I knew what I needed to do. And for the first time since my father's phone call, I felt entirely calm. I opened my laptop and wrote one email. It was 2 sentences long. I sent it to Gerald Pratt. He called me back within the hour. "Raina," his voice was careful, measured. "I'm glad you reached out. I think we need to talk." "I already know about the withdrawals," I said. A pause. "Then you also know this isn't just a family disagreement." "No," I agreed. "It's not." Gerald confirmed what I had already suspected. The withdrawals from the joint account were not authorized under the terms of our original agreement. My father had restructured access without informing me, using a technicality in the account setup that he had apparently noticed years earlier and kept in reserve. Whether he had always planned to use it, or whether the opportunity had simply presented itself when wedding costs began to mount, Gerald couldn't say. What he could say was that the paper trail was clear, the original agreement was enforceable, and I had a very strong case if I chose to pursue it. I told Gerald I did not want to pursue it in a courtroom. Not first. I wanted to pursue it in a living room. He understood immediately. He had been a family lawyer for 30 years. He knew exactly what that meant. Meanwhile, my family was having the best December of their recent lives, as far as anyone watching from the outside could tell. Tara was posting constantly, venue tour, dress fittings, holiday decorations, the whole performance. My father appeared in several videos looking relaxed and proud, the patriarch of a beautiful, complete family gathering. My mother stood beside him in a red sweater, smiling at the camera with the particular brightness of someone working very hard to look happy. There was one post that got to me more than the others. A caption Tara wrote under a photo of the family Christmas tree, surrounded by gifts and tinsel, everyone beaming. She wrote, "This year felt different, quieter, more peaceful, grateful for the people who show up." The people who show up. I read that caption 3 times, and then I booked my flight. December 23rd, non-stop to Columbus. I had pushed it back by 1 day from my original ticket, rebooked, different airline, no announcement to anyone. I was not going to warn them. I was not going to call ahead and give my father the opportunity to reframe the narrative or prepare his defenses. I was going to arrive at the family Christmas gathering that my Aunt Rita was hosting. I had confirmed the details through a cousin who was still, quietly, on my side, and I was going to let the evening unfold exactly as I needed it to. Gerald Pratt was going to be present. Not in a dramatic way, not visibly. He was going to be reachable by phone, with copies of every document prepared and ready to share digitally the moment they became relevant. He had also prepared a formal letter outlining the legal violations, which I had printed and folded into an envelope that I carried in the inside pocket of my jacket. I landed in Columbus on the afternoon of the 23rd. The air was cold and smelled like wood smoke and something faintly metallic. That particular Ohio winter smell I had grown up with and somehow never stopped associating with the idea of home. I rented a car. I checked into a hotel. I spent an hour reviewing everything one more time. Then I got dressed, put the envelope in my jacket, and drove to my aunt's house. The gathering was in full swing when I arrived. Cars lined the street in both directions. Through the front window, I could see the warm glow of lights and the movement of people inside. I could hear, faintly through the closed door, laughter and the low murmur of a football game on television somewhere in the back. I rang the doorbell. My Aunt Rita opened the door. The expression that crossed her face was extraordinary, a full second of genuine shock before she reassembled into something more guarded. "Raina, I didn't know you were coming." "I know," I said. "I thought I'd surprise everyone." I walked in. The room adjusted around my presence the way a room does when something unexpected enters it, conversations trailing off, heads turning, a ripple of awareness moving from person to person. I saw my cousin Derek's eyes go wide. I saw 2 of my aunts exchange a look. I saw my mother, standing near the kitchen doorway, go very still. And then I saw my father. He was sitting in the good armchair near the fireplace, the way he always had at family gatherings, the position of a man who considers himself the center of the room. He saw me and his expression moved through several things very quickly: surprise, irritation, and then a kind of forced composure that I recognized from childhood as his management face. "Raina," his voice was even, "what are you doing here?" "Merry Christmas, Dad," I said. Tara was across the room, and she stood up. Her fiancé put a hand on her arm. "What is this?" she said, directing the question at no one in particular, which was a technique I remembered from growing up performing confusion to avoid accountability. "Sit down, Tara," I said, not unkindly, just clearly. "Excuse me. I have something to say, and I'd like everyone to hear it, because everyone in this room has been told a version of events that isn't accurate, and you all deserve the truth." My father stood up. "This is not the time or the place." "Dad," I looked at him directly. He stopped. Something in my voice, I think, communicated that I was not going to be redirected this time. "Sit down." He sat. I don't think he meant to. I think his body simply responded to a tone it had never heard from me before, not angry, not pleading, not trying to earn anything. Just certain. I took the envelope from my jacket pocket. "6 years ago, Dad, you and I entered into a formal savings agreement. We put money into a joint account together, with the understanding that those funds were being held toward a shared property investment. Gerald Pratt drafted the agreement. You signed it. I signed it. It was witnessed. The room was very quiet. Someone in the back turned the television off. Over the last 18 months, I continued, approximately $34,000 was withdrawn from that account. I was not informed. I did not authorize it. The withdrawals began around the same time Tara's engagement was announced. I looked at my sister briefly, then back at my father. The timing isn't subtle. Tara's voice came out sharp and high. That is not what happened. The records say otherwise, I said. I held up the envelope. This is a letter from Gerald Pratt, outlining the specific violations of our original agreement and the legal options available to me. He confirmed on the phone that I have a strong case. I set the envelope on the coffee table. I'm not here to take this to court. That's not why I came. I came because the people in this room were told I had chosen to abandon my family, that I had changed, that I was the problem. And I want everyone to understand what actually happened, and why. My father's face had gone through several shades. He said, Raina, we can discuss this privately. We could have discussed this privately 6 months ago if you had told me the truth. You chose to tell 40 people a lie instead. So now we're discussing it here. My mother had sat down somewhere during all of this. I glanced at her and saw that she was looking at the floor. I felt something for her, not anger, not then. Something more like grief. She had known. I could see it in the way she was holding her hands in her lap, very careful and very still. Aunt Rita had been quiet through all of this, which was remarkable for her. I saw her look at my father with an expression I had never seen on her face when she looked at him before. Doubt. The room had made its own quiet verdict. I could feel it. Tara tried once more. You're doing this on purpose. You're trying to ruin my Christmas. You're trying to ruin my wedding. Tara, I looked at her. I'm not here for your wedding. I'm here because my name was removed from this family without my knowledge. My money was used without my permission, and I was told not to come home. I am home, and I am done apologizing for it. She had nothing to say to that. Her fiancé put his hand on her arm again, and this time she let herself be settled. I looked at my father one last time. He was looking at the envelope on the coffee table. His management face had come apart. What was underneath it looked older and more tired than I had expected. Part of me had spent years imagining this moment as something triumphant and clean. It wasn't. It was just sad, the way most true things are when you finally see them clearly. I don't want your money back, I said. What I want is for you to look at the people in this room and understand what you've been doing. Not just to me, to all of them. Because a man who erases his own daughter to fund a wedding has been lying to everyone here, not just me. I picked up my coat. I'm staying in Columbus for a few days, I said to the room generally. If anyone wants to talk, you know how to reach me. I walked to the front door. My Aunt Rita moved to open it for me. She didn't say anything, but she put her hand briefly on my arm as I passed, and the pressure of it said enough. I stepped outside into the cold Ohio air. The wood smoke smell again. A few stars visible between the clouds. My rental car was parked at the curb, and I stood beside it for a moment without getting in, just breathing. I was not full of triumph. I was not hollowed out. I was something I had not felt in relation to my family in a very long time. I was neutral. Not numb, I knew the difference. Neutral means you've stopped needing the outcome to be a certain thing. It means you've settled your own account, regardless of what the other side chooses to do with theirs. My phone rang 2 days later. It was Gerald Pratt. My father had contacted him and agreed, without a fight, to repay the full amount over 12 months. There would be no courtroom. There would be no public filing. The agreement would be honored, finally, years late, because the alternative had become too visible to ignore. My mother called the following week. We talked for a long time. I don't think she's fully untangled from the dynamic she's lived in for 30 years, and I don't know if she ever will be. But she called. That was something. Tara did not call. I did not expect her to. Some people would rather be comfortable than honest, and that is their right. It just isn't a right that includes my presence. I did not go back to that house for the holidays. I spent Christmas Eve at a diner 2 miles from my hotel, eating eggs and reading a book, and I want you to know genuinely, without any performance, that it was one of the most peaceful evenings I can remember. No tension, no management, no measuring my words against the mood of the room, just coffee and eggs and quiet, and the particular relief of a person who has finally put down something very heavy. I had spent years believing that if I just served long enough, sacrificed enough, proved enough, I would earn my place in that family. What I learned, the hard way and then the clear way, is that belonging isn't something you earn from people who have decided not to see you. You can only build it somewhere else, with people who are actually looking. They thought I was coming home to belong. I came back to finally let go. And I have never been lighter. I want to ask you something before you go, and I want you to sit with it honestly. Has your own family ever rewritten your story? Have they ever told other people a version of you that you didn't recognize, used your absence as an excuse, or let your contributions disappear quietly while someone else took the credit? If they have, first, I want you to know that you are not imagining it. The gaslighting is real. The erasure is real. And the confusion you feel, that particular specific confusion of someone who keeps asking, "But I did everything right, didn't I?" is one of the most exhausting things a person can carry. You are allowed to put it down. Leave a comment below if any part of this story found you. I read every one. If you want more stories about real people who decided to stop shrinking and start accounting for what was actually owed to them, subscribe. There are more coming, and they are worth your time. Click hype if this story deserved to be heard. Share it with someone who needs the reminder that their voice matters, even when the people closest to them have been the loudest in drowning it out. Your story isn't over, and neither are you.